PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Aquilini.
He's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey Podcast. And I'm not sure why a spaceship has entered our land, but welcome anyway. You can all follow us on the podcast for hockey. I'm hearing this buzz, and I'm like, am I okay? Is anyone else hearing it?
Your audio is sounding a little off there, Kev. I'm not sure what's going on, unfortunately.
Unplug and replug.
Yeah, that's usually. I'm the guy going to school for IT. That's usually the first step.
Once again,
great start.
And Kevin's muted now too. So
yeah, still muted.
Well, there we go.
That's better.
Better.
Yes. Professional broadcaster Kevin Olenek, host of the Hockey Podcast. You follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast, where we drop to the 100 and Donald Audette of subscribers. People don't like us. I think a couple of people think we're Adam Fox and went, boo! You can also subscribe to the audio wherever you get your podcasts. And maybe Sean, why am I going boo? Why should someone be worried about that?
Well, that, Kevin, is the word of the week. We are lucky enough to be partnered with the Pig and Duke pubs here in Calgary, and we are working with them to give away 2 tickets to the April 23rd game between the Vancouver Canucks and the Calgary Flames, where you get, as I said, there's 2 tickets. You meet at the Pig and Duke pub on 11th, and you end up on 12th. Why am I screwing that one up? That's my home pub. Jeez.
12th and 12th, buddy.
12th and 12th, baby. Yep.
Yep.
Pig and Duke on 12th and 12th Southwest. You will get food and drinks before the game. You will get limoed to the game, ticket to the game, and you get to hopefully watch the Canucks beat up on the Flames. At least that's my hope. And then you get limo. Yeah, our hope. We get, and then you'll get limoed back to the Pig and Duke at 12th and 12th, and to continue on the festivities there, or you can go home. So word of the week is boo, as in what the Flames fans were doing to Adam Fox every time he touched the puck.
Yes, it was rather glorious there. Yeah. And maybe when the Canucks play the Flames in Vancouver, Chris Tanev may get those very same greetings and salutations from Canuck fans.
What?
Are you kidding?
Not
No.
a chance.
Not a chance. Not a
No.
chance.
No.
You're not going to boo Tanev?
He put the time in with us, and he has more time as a Canuck than ever as a Flame. You can't say the same for Fox.
No, the fans wanted him re-signed. The booing would be for the general manager, amongst the many other things people don't like the general manager for. So, no, I think Tanev will be well received.
I'm fascinated.
It's not a Duncan Keith or Ryan Kessler type situation.
Why would Canucks fans boo Chris Tanev?
Because he left.
Yeah, that wasn't his
to the
fault. That wasn't his fault. This isn't like Adam Fox, who forced his way out of Calgary. Said who threw a Steve Francis and decided to pout his way out of the team who drafted him.
Yeah.
This isn't a Duncan Keith who elbowed Daniel Sedin to oblivion, got hit with a slap on the wrist.
Hell,
Like, come on.
Don't correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think even Pavel Bure got booed after he left, and he left on some pretty awful notes.
Did Messier get booed? Messier got booed.
Oh God, Messier. Yeah.
Messier and Keenan, of course, they got booed.
I mean, I think the
only-
best recent example of something like this was John Tavares and Islanders fans. I mean, that boy, that's a pretty ugly.
We
scene
don't
there.
need you.
Yeah,
Or where's your jammies?
yeah, that was a real hostile scene to say the least.
Oh, that was great. That was fantastic. That's more of
Mhm.
the theater that hockey needs.
Absolutely.
And well, we say hello to Tyler and we say hello to Chris. Hello.
Hello.
Devin, hang on. I got Devin on the line here. Hello? Yeah. Okay, I'll let him know. Devin says hi to your dad, Tyler, but fuck you to you. I don't.
Okay.
That's
Well,
I don't know what.
I mean, that's his opinion. That's fine. I mean, I think we just, this show really moves along a lot more smoothly and professionally without Devin here to screw it all up.
Whoa!
So
I love the
Shots
feud.
fired.
yes, you too, Devin.
I love the feud. Like we have like one of the best feuds with it. Like I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're probably right. Tanev is not going to get booed, but I think the emotion is going to be quite a fascinating. It is going to be a set of theater that I am looking forward to. That Flames fans and Canucks fans are going to be looking forward to when Tanev and Markstrom make their first appearance in front of the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think that we'll get into this a little bit too, because I think the Pacific Division has some fantastic theater. I wonder what Eichel's going to be reacting like with Flames land. That will be fascinating when he touches the puck.
That depending on how much fans believe the speculation that was out there, yeah, perhaps that one could be something to watch. I mean, what Buffalo, the first return to Buffalo for Eichel will be quite something.
Well,
Yeah.
the Eichel one is so complicated because I think there's a lot of empathy towards Eichel and the situation. Buffalo's been a tire fire, and then despite the fact that he was really good in his tenure as a Sabre, and they couldn't put anything around, they couldn't put a team around him. There's like a lot of talk that the owners don't care. They brought in Kevin Adams, who was a GM that not a lot of people have faith in, and they weren't willing to give him the surgery that he wanted. And had they done that, he may be still a Sabre. Like it's I feel like that the whole thing with Eichel is more geared, like the anger and frustration was going to be more geared towards the ownership and the management as opposed to the player, which is similar to what Markstrom and Tanev have with when you're going to see them come back to Vancouver, because I think that's more of a I think the other thing with Markstrom is everyone kind of knew they had to make a choice. They couldn't lock him up long term and then be able to keep Demko. And look how good Demko is.
Yeah.
Markstrom's playing out of his mind this year, but Canucks fans aren't necessarily feeling like they're missing him because Demko's playing out of his mind as well.
We might be a little salty that he went to Calgary of all teams, but we were kind of bracing ourselves for him leaving.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out to be a win-win situation, I think, for both organizations in the sense that Demko is starring and has been the MVP, and I think Markstrom, you could argue, is at least, if he's not in your top, he's not the MVP, he's close to it.
Oh,
Both
he's
are
the
playing
only
really well.
the only
he's got
blemish
4
there
shutouts.
is
Yeah.
the only blemish there is bringing in Holtby to replace Markstrom as one of the 2 goalies and then buying him out after one season. That I know there's a lot of people that want to praise the choice of Demko over Markstrom and how there was no negatives in that transaction. Well, there was there was in that regard. Buying.
Well, I mean that's a separate transaction in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's and I think they bought out Holtby not because they didn't like him, just to make the cap work with some of the moves they had made. They got handed OEL and Garland on a plate. They got Garland signed to a nice deal, and it's just that it's casualties of the salary cap world. I think I've been thinking about this for a little bit in terms of if you follow the NFL, how many players get like just waived? They're making a lot of money, and they just get waived. They're like just sort of, they could be star players that have waned a little bit, but they don't fit into the cap model anymore. So teams waive them. I know
Correct
it's
me if I'm
hockey,
wrong, but I think it's partially due to the fact that the NFL is not guaranteed salary.
that's part of it
Yeah.
too. But that's also like you can use the buyout as an option. You can use the trade as an option to move on from these players. And I think we're starting to see a little bit more in the NHL of a little bit more of that attitude for management.
Well, definitely, because without the cap going up every year like we were used to all those years, you're kind of stuck now, right? Like they've got to make those kinds of decisions.
How would Nate? The other one is Nate Schmidt. I'm really curious how Canuck fans are going to react to him.
There'll be boos for that. Unfortunately, I think they're unwarranted, but I think
agree.
there will be, because I think there's just you look at who the type of player Nate Schmidt is, the type of person Nate Schmidt is, the type of season that they had last year would have killed him. Like I don't think he ever got comfortable as a Canuck through that whole season. I don't think he was ever comfortable, and
he came in with a lot of fanfare too, and then underwhelmed, right? So the salty fans will certainly be tempted to boo him there, I think.
Well, I think he's one of those guys that had it been we were allowed outside and everything was okay, he would have been out in the community interacting in the public a lot. He would have been doing a lot of charity work. I think that's just seems to be like the type of person he is, and just watching some Winnipeg stuff, he's doing that there already. It's just last year was just not conducive for him.
Yeah, outside of the year that we had him, like if we had him any other year, he'd still be a Canuck right now. I strongly believe.
Yeah. But it's fascinating because I think a lot of the theater now is quite something over there. But let's we actually have started off in the ditch, and then we get to go into the rabbit. We started in the rabbit hole. We get the event. We'll start with the Canucks.
I'm really confused on this metaphor you're going at there.
I don't know.
I think I would ditch rabbit hole, one of the two. But
where's the road?
We're going to the road right now. Okay, we're already left onto the road.
Trying to get out of that ditch somehow.
Trying to get out of that ditch.
Spot.
Yeah, I feel like Sean's keeping us in the ditch here. But Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks came away with a 6-3 victory last night over the Dallas Stars. The power play arose, Pettersson arose, and it all was fine for one night.
Yeah, they found a way to quell most of the frustrations. The power play looked good. I tweeted out earlier this morning talking about how the movement on the power play changed a lot. Everything that was driving me absolutely mental about the power play was the lack of movement and how the play would die on JT Miller's stick or PD's stick. It wasn't. They got a really quick goal to start off, and then they got the confidence and they started throwing it around like we know they can. And that changed the feel of the game and changed the it changed the outcome of the game.
I mean, if you look at the Canucks win-loss record, it kind of makes it seem like they're this awful team again, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And yeah, that may turn out to be true, but I mean, they've been close in most games. I know close doesn't count in the standings, but I think we're finally seeing the signs of the problems kind of getting resolved here. And the power plays the biggest one. The penalty kill's probably second biggest on the list, and that still leaves much to be desired. But to see PD get 3 points last night and finally get another goal, that's huge for not just his confidence but everybody watching as well to see that. And Demko's been great, and things are slowly starting to come together. And I guess the only thing that we shouldn't be surprised that they got off to a bit of a sluggish start, considering that the long road trip to start the season, all the roster changes. Probably for me, the biggest surprise is how poor the homestand has been overall, but in terms of wins and losses. But they're getting there. We spoke a week ago wondering if it was time to panic, and I feel better in saying that it's not quite time to panic yet, and they've got a couple more wins here, so it's been good.
Yeah, as long as we keep those, one big win a week going on, then it'll keep that fire from spreading.
We need to see some more wins, though. They need to string a few together and get back into the middle of the pack and not just be trailing off the edge.
Well, let's to stick with the power play. I don't know if this is. I mean, it doesn't feel like a coincidence to me that Alex Chason is not playing and not on the power play, and it seems to move more. I'm not trying to disparage Alex Chason, but I don't know if he was bringing what they were looking for on the power play, and it just doesn't feel like a mesh. And I'm not putting this all on Alex Chason, but it did feel like the change did help the Canucks a little bit.
It's part of the changes, but to me, that's like the least of the issues. It's more the sort of the general philosophy of the power play and who's on the first unit, who's on the second unit, and how it's structured.
Yeah, for me, it didn't really matter who was the net front presence going into last game. It didn't matter who was the net front presence. They were struggling just moving the puck. They were struggling to create chances and create unpredictability. They had Besser there at times. They had Chason there at times. They had other players. They tried different options. And what changed was the philosophy of being able to move around and rotate through, because Miller scored the first one from his normal spot, but guess what? He shot the fucking puck. That's something that he was one of the biggest problems with Miller before this was that he wasn't a threat to shoot the puck. He was always looking to pass. And then Petey's goal was from not his normal spot, and then Miller scored from Petey's spot. It was they had rotation. That was a big part of it. And it comes down. It doesn't come down. Whoever the net front guy is or the down low player is, doesn't matter. If you're not rotating through and you're not creating unpredictability with how you move the puck and how you move the players around on the power play, it doesn't matter who's your quote unquote net front presence. You're not going to do well.
And if they're able to get more one-timers, I think that'll definitely help the power play. It's really noticeable, especially with Petey. He'll get the puck and he'll receive it, and then he'll just hold on to it for a second and a half before he actually goes to either pass it or to shoot it somewhere else. So if they can actually execute some more one-timers on the power play, I think that'll go a long ways in improving the record.
Yeah, and some of that is his own reluctance, but in a lot of cases, the pass is not in his wheelhouse to really make that one-timer easy for him. There's times he's having to stop it because it's not right in that shooting position. He's having to stop it first, right?
Yeah, there was a couple of times in the first half of the game yesterday where Miller passed it to Pettersson, and it just wasn't right where he needed it. It was just off of his stick a little bit, and he couldn't get it done. So, and yeah, I mean,
but all that being said, pulling Chason off the power play, putting Besser there, you do have a more skilled player in that spot, a better playmaker in that spot. Not to mention that you're taking Chason out of the lineup, putting Justin Dowling in, who's a better penalty kill option, which is the next thing that they need to fix.
Yeah, because Dowling played exactly 0 minutes and 0 seconds on the penalty kill yesterday. It was Lamico with 2 minutes 22 seconds, JT Miller 2:05, Justin Bailey had 12 seconds, Pearson a minute 45, Dickinson a minute 50. it's weird because you look at the face-off numbers here. JT Miller was at 75% in the face-off circle. Jason Dickinson 55%. Clearly the other thing that is usually a problem with penalty killing is they say that your best penalty killer needs to be your goaltender, and clearly Demko has been a MVP, so you can't blame him. It's just, to me, it's like passing lanes, I think, is one of the problems, and I think there's the concept, but there too.
Face-offs, not winning enough of them in their own end on the penalty kill.
On the penalty kill, for the whole season, Lamako's 45% in the face-off dot. JT Miller's 32%, and Jason Dickinson is 25%.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
I got to tell you, I don't know if anyone's going to agree with me, but I've been a little underwhelmed with Dickinson.
He's not produced offensively, but he's been solid defensively. But
Which is
that's
exactly
what
why we brought him in.
Yeah, I think there was an expectation that was maybe a little higher than what it should have been, because they brought him in and they signed him and they said, yeah, he's gonna be our third line center. And I think he's still taking time to mesh with the team. The Travis Green line blender, I don't think has helped him enough. But I think if they stick with Dickinson in between Podkolzin and Garland, that's a line that can be a buzzsaw line. That's a line that can create offense, and I think it'll come for him. Sorry for cutting you off there, Kev.
I just don't. I mean, I know. I understand what you're saying, and I mean, I think that's that. I'm just from a perspective, I just don't see. Oh, like there was a. I think it's not. How do I word this? Because I think one of the things that I'm noticing here is part of what would help Pettersson get out of, and maybe he's out of this. Maybe we're getting on a roll with Pettersson. Let's hope so for Pettersson. But what would help, I think, is a little bit more secondary, or as Anthony Stewart uses, tertiary offense. And I'm not seeing a lot of it. And I think you need a little bit more from there. And you look like Podkolzin is the only one that is not part of that top six. And I would put Connor Garland. I put Connor Garland as one of your top six forwards, even though he's on line 3. Lamico isn't scoring. Dowling did score, but then he's been in and out of the lineup. I think we need kind of in general a little bit more secondary offense.
Having secondary offense comes a lot easier when your top line is producing and being a threat more often than not when they're on the ice, because those second, third, and fourth lines get easier matchups.
Yeah, the other thing is the Canucks are so often playing from behind too.
Yeah.
So, when you're in the lead, the game has a tendency to open up a little bit as the other team presses, and then that makes it easier for the secondary scoring to come through. So yeah, really, I totally agree with Sean. I was going to make that point if he hadn't either. It is as the top players go, the secondary scoring kind of goes with them.
I completely agree, but I will also throw in a joke and say, Brandon Sutter, come back. We need another Hattie from you.
Yeah, that's right. Every once in a while, he's good.
Let alone good face-off guy who can penalty kill.
Yeah, that's an underappreciated presence that's missing right now.
Yeah, I mean, JT Miller is killing penalties, and I'm not I'm not putting this on him, but I don't know if you want him killing penalties as a top 6 forward, or you don't. I mean, you could, but maybe you want that a little bit less if you can get your Sutters and Motts to do that very same thing. But as I drop my pen,
what why have we gotten to a point where we don't want our top 6 forwards to be penalty killing?
Well, if you can have Sutter and Mott do that more, then you want Miller in the offensive zone. It's not
Well, you're penalty killing. You're not going to be in the offensive zone.
Yeah, I think Sean is you don't want to overwork these guys, but still there shouldn't be some phobia against top six forwards penalty killing. You just don't being relied on to that point. But yeah,
I think he's more so just coming from a mindset of like, typically speaking, like in a general vibe, like your bottom six forwards typically are your penalty killers, and your top six forwards typically are your power play.
That's not necessarily true. There, you still have top six forwards who are very good penalty killers. Look at Mitch Marner in Toronto. Like you put them. Yeah,
I hear Leaf fans. I hear Leaf fans already just shouting at you, boo! Boo!
But I kid. Yeah. Like I'm pulling up the time on ice for penalty kills for like. I look at that and I think like what like, yeah, you don't want them to spend too much time penalty killing, but be a disciplined team. That goes a long way to mitigating how much time your top a player like JT Miller spends on the penalty kill. And yeah, I think you do want to be able to have some other players play roles, but I don't think you should have this like, oh no, he's top six forward, he can't penalty kill mentality.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you think Quinn Hughes should be killing penalties?
Actually, I do. I do think he should be killing penalties, not consistently. Like, he shouldn't be the guy you throw out there all the time. But I think you shouldn't be afraid to put him out there. He's a smart player. I think he could definitely be someone who could read the play and get some interceptions and clear the zone.
I don't disagree with you on Quinn Hughes. I do think he should be killing penalties. He's not for some reason, but I don't think, considering all that's happening with the penalty kill, I think all options are on the table. I even think Trish Schneider and Tyler Noble could maybe offer some penalty kill assistance at this point.
Oh, that's I just wait for my chance. Yeah, well, I mean, Hughes being your supposed best and most expensive defenseman now, I mean, you would friggin' hope he can shoulder some penalty killing time.
Yeah, so I was just trying to pull up the top forwards with time penalty kill time on ice. Joel Eriksson-Ek, he's a top six forward for Minnesota, probably their number one center. He's ninth in terms of forwards penalty kill time for forwards this season. Jonathan Huberdeau, 10th. Like, it's not having one or two of your top six forwards on your penalty kill, I don't think is a bad thing. I honestly think there's too much talk about this with JT Miller. For some reason, like, it's just, I think it's fine where he's at. I think once Sutter comes back, if they had a better option for faceoffs, someone they would feel comfortable in the faceoff dot with, maybe his time on ice killing penalties lessens a bit. But we've talked about how important faceoffs are. He needs to bear down and be better at faceoffs, but he's also one of the better faceoff guys that they have.
Well, on the first power play goal, he did win the faceoff. They didn't get the puck out.
Tyler Myers did not get the puck out, and then Justin Bailey overcommitted and opened up the seam pass.
Yeah. I'm not blaming. I think it's easy to blame. I don't want to blame anybody specifically because I think there's a number of different issues here with the penalty kill. And I think eventually it's not going to be this bad forever. I think it will improve as the season goes on, but it's one of those things that I think has to be rectified.
Oh, they absolutely have to. I think the penalty kill will regress to the mean and become better because of it. Like, they're operating at an absolutely historically bad level at this point. That's what's so frustrating. If they can't, hopefully that last game is the start of the power play turning it around. Hopefully last game is the start of PD turning it around, and hopefully that they can start turning the penalty kill around. Because if they do, and we see more of what we saw with the Canucks last game, that's the Canucks that I thought we'd see this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm still impressed with Connor Garland. I think he's been strong.
Best
And
Canucks so far this season, in my mind.
Best skater.
Well, yeah, outside of Demko.
Yeah.
yeah, that pass he made for Pod Colson's, was it Pod Colson's goal? Yeah, it was Pod Colson's goal. Yeah, no look. Yeah, I've been so impressed with him. Overall, I think for the Canucks, good win. I think you would ideally like to get out of this. 3-4 is not a great homestand, but I think you'd rather have 3-4 than 2-5.
You think?
Sure. I math not being a strong suit, but I do have a calculator, and I know the 3 is higher than 2. Come to me with more advice.
Yeah. Well, the closer you are to 500, certainly that brings a lot of the heat around the team start here down considerably. Even just when you just factor in one game and a different result there.
Yeah.
I'm just going to derail us for a half second. If the Canucks don't use Garland as an elf in their Canucks marketing, they have failed. I just had that thought and I wanted to get it out there before I forgot about it.
No, I'm sure they're cooking up something here. Yeah.
Alan joins the chat. He definitely needs Sutter and Mott on the PK to have any hope.
I've liked Justin Bailey on the PK. I've liked Dowling in his limited role. He's got he's basically right around just under a minute per game on the penalty kill. So he's getting a couple shifts every game. So he is an option so far. But they need to win. They need to bear down and get the details right on the penalty kill. That's where a lot of the X's and O's go. Is you have to execute them. And the Canucks aren't executing. I know everyone, like I said, everyone was going to be. We talked about Tyler Myers not clearing the puck. Everyone's going to focus in on that, but the overcommittal of Justin Bailey really opened up that seam pass, and then and Dallas was able to do it, scored a really nice power play goal because of it. You need to be able to close off those cross ice passes. And the Canucks haven't been able to so far. And I think they need to be a little more aggressive too. Like you look at how teams are defending the Canucks on the power play when the other teams are penalty killing. They're being a lot more aggressive than the Canucks are, and I think that's something we saw a little bit last night. But they need to continue on with that trend.
One more thing I want to get into, and it just popped in my head because we talked about Quinn Hughes in the penalty kill. I would be open to the idea of an Ekman-Larson-Hughes pairing on Ekman-Larson on the right side. I think that there would be some really good puck handling. I tossed the contract out, but I think Ekman-Larson has been a very good player for the Canucks. I would argue. Probably overall, I would say I think he's played probably the best on defense. I think if not one or two, I like I think he's very responsible. I think he can play both sides. I'm not saying he's better than Quinn Hughes, but I think that he's a guy that he can be a good minute muncher on the penalty kill, and you can use him in a lot of different situations.
Well, that's basically what they're using him right now.
But I'd like to see him on a pairing with Quinn Hughes. I'd like to see that together. I know that people are like, no. But I think that there's something to that.
I don't know. I really like what the way El Myers pairing's been. I don't think you mess with that pairing right now. And I don't think you mess with Poolman with Hughes. It seems to be working.
No, I was just thinking in terms of even penalty killing. That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, here and there, but if you were to try and make that a full-time pair, and then what are you gonna? You're gonna have Poolman and Myers together, like it gets thin, right? If you load up the one pair a little too much like that, that's my guess as to why that's not being done. As far as Ekman Larson, I mean, I guess I would make the comment that as far as the previous number 23 versus him, it's been an upgrade. And, there was some doubt as to whether that would be the case, given how it had gone for OEL in Arizona in recent years. So it's nice to see him having a bit of a resurgence there.
For sure.
Yeah. Alan chiming in again. Tyler Meyer and Pullman were brutal last night. Defense will be a problem throughout the season.
I disagree with the Pullman statement. Like if
you look
at his stats, he was pretty solid.
The comment about defense being a problem all season. I mean, it seems to be like that all the time with the Canucks going back a few years here now, and I think that's more of a team defense reliance on the goaltending, sort of a larger level philosophy there than just individual defensemen back there.
Yeah, it's more institutional than player performance.
Yeah, it's what's happening up the ice and the transition and what the forwards are doing. It's all of that put together that gives the Canucks problems defensively. It's not just picking on Tyler Myers having a bad night or whatever. Like it's a thankless job back there. The other four guys on the ice can not do their job, and then it's the one defenseman and the goalie that look like the ones that screwed the whole thing up because they're the last line of defense.
Take this with a grain of salt because I'm not the biggest fan of all these shot-based metrics, but in sort of expected goals for and against, like the expected goals for share when Tucker Pullman was on the ice was over 90%. So that's based on shot locations and everything. So I think that's why I was so vehemently against when he said that Pullman was brutal last night. I don't think he was. I think he put himself in front of a couple shots that definitely hurt him too. I think he was a warrior last night, and I think he deserves some credit for what he did last night.
Yeah. Oh, this guy chimes in.
No, he's not. The Canucks won last night. There, Dev. The Canucks won last night. What are the Leafs doing tonight?
That's not even English. What does he mean?
I think he means this. Yeah.
So
yeah, he did correct himself. It's just we can't show more than one comment at a time.
As this season's gone on, and even going back to last season, especially at the beginning, is Green the problem? You could say at the very least he's part of the problem when the Canucks are not winning. And I mean, it's hard to put a finger on it, but when it looks so disorganized, you have to wonder if they're employing the right coaching strategies or playing to the team's strengths. I don't know. We never get a chance to pick the coach's brain ourselves, but he does seem to be fairly set in certain philosophies, and maybe those don't always jibe with the lineup he's got.
Well, I think there was also it's just execution too. I think a lot of it is execution that the Canucks weren't when they've lost. They've had a couple just brutal errors. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Kev.
Well, I mean, I guess when we get into the Flames here, there'll be maybe a counter argument to this, but two new assistant coaches, I think it sometimes takes time. In some cases, it can take time for everybody to mesh and figure out what everybody's doing and how they're doing it as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, acclimation of systems as well as the new guys on the team, all that combined has definitely been a reason for this slow start for the Canucks for sure.
And they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot. So it's not like and it's early and nobody really is counting that anyway. So I would think overall everything is fine. But I do think you want to go 3-4 in this homestand for sure.
Again,
sure, yeah.
It's just
yeah. Well, they wanted to go 7-0 in the homestand, but
you want to. I think my point was made. I feel like I'm being mocked. We will move on.
Yeah,
I act like a 4-year-old.
You kind of set yourself up for that one.
I did.
Yeah.
Adam Fox set himself up for some yeah. As he decided, I did not want to be a Flame. I'm not interested in being a Flame. I'm only going to play in New York. And play in New York he did, and played in New York this weekend, and played in New York on Saturday and he heard the boos. It was one of the first times in a long time that someone not named Drew Doughty got the ire of Calgary Flames fans as booed every time he touched the puck. And I think it's even was Adam Fox sucks was being chanted throughout the building. It was one of the better atmospheres since the fans came back in Calgary for sure. And I mean, it buoyed the Calgary Flames into a 6-0 victory, but I loved it. I thought it was great. You could feel the emotion in Matthew Kaczuk, even during the first intermission. There was just a lot more emotion, and it's, we don't get a lot of that in hockey, but it was fun to have.
Oh, it was great. Like I said, that type of theater is what we need more of. That's like I think there's so much talk about the analytics and whether a team is doing good or bad. We forget about some of these stories and the theater that comes from it. Just to bring it back a little bit, last night's game between the Canucks and Dallas was a lot of fun to watch. It was, you had Demko's paddle save that it took us till today to realize, oh yeah, he actually did make that save. It wasn't off the post. Then you had the windmill 90s vintage era glove save from Hudobin, and he had some great goals and some up and down play. It was great. And then go back to Saturday with the Flames fans versus Adam Fox, and his goal got called back, unfortunately, because that would have added some more spice,
especially when he went like this.
Yeah, he leaned into it. It was great. That is exactly what we need, more of this pro wrestling style of
it's the heroes and villains thing, right? That's what makes competition more compelling, and it gives you some sort of emotional connection to the game you're watching. Totally with Sean. Let's not lose that in favor of analytical discussions, because while those are fascinating, they don't have the same bite that the heroes and villains concept does, I think.
Yeah, the guys that are easy to hate are not the guys that you necessarily are seeing on the score sheet. It's the guys who piss you off when you play against them, like a Garland, like a Kaczuk.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just in terms of Hudobin, though, I feel like he's such an entertaining goaltender to watch because, I feel like he's got that Ray Ferraro, what Ray Ferraro called of Askarov, the unmade bed. He's got a bit of that quality to him where he makes saves and I'm like, I have no idea how you made that save, but good on you, dude. Good on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that his height probably doesn't help him in making those saves, so it makes those desperation saves even that much more fantastical.
Someone was listening to John Garrett.
Yeah.
One of 3 goalies under 6 feet.
Yeah.
Including ours.
Halak, yes.
Yes,
and
Halak, yeah.
UC Saros. And but in terms of, the Flames had an interesting week as well overall. And maybe we'll start with, how do we do this? Let's start with Matthew Kaczuk, because his name was mentioned his name was mentioned on Twitter as Kevin Weeks put him in as the part of the package that was being offered to Jack Eichel. The Flames management, according to Elliot Friedman, were pissed that his name got out there. According to Kaczuk, there was nothing to worry about. He wasn't there. This felt like, because I remember I was at the Canadian Traffic Network on my way back home when I saw this tweet, and there was a huge chat about it. And I know that I probably angered Heidi and said that the offer on the table, according to Kevin Weeks, would be something that I would consider. But ultimately, I guess, it felt like this was something that was blown out of proportion and there was nothing there.
I don't think there was anything there. I think that offer that was put out there, I think was rich. Like you think, look at what Vegas actually got. They got a lesser player in Alex Tuck. They got a first round pick and another pick.
Third, I believe.
No,
Yeah.
it's a second. It's a second.
Oh, okay.
I think there's conditions on it all, but it could be a second. I believe is what it was.
I'll have a look as we're talking.
Yeah. And then compare that to what Kevin Weeks put out there, which was what Kaczuk, a first round pick, a former first round pick, and a couple prospects. Like that is far and away significantly more than what Buffalo actually got. So when you look at you compare that to, and I know the initial visceral reaction for a lot of people is like, well, why didn't they accept the Calgary offer? Well, maybe that Calgary offer wasn't actually there.
Yeah.
And
I don't necessarily blame Weeks, but it definitely seems like whoever fed him that information was doing that to try and get a bigger package for Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it seemed like this entire time Adams was doing his best at pulling off that Sakic, Duchesne-esque trade that he pulled off.
Yeah, and the way to pull off a deal like that is to create a market, right? So, I mean, there's different strategies for getting that information out into the public, but people sort of lose sight in the heat of the moment of hearing all these names tossed around. That the Kevin Weekses and the Elliot Friedmans out there and the Pierre LeBruns. I mean, they're just reporting on what they've been hearing. Doesn't mean any of it's true until there's an actual trade to be announced.
The deal was Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuck, a future first round pick, a future second rounder, and a future third round. It is a protected top 10 pick. If it's in the top 10, it moves to the next year, and then Vegas gets a third round pick as well. I mean, ultimately, I mean, it was. I guess what happened with Kaczuk. I think what really came out of it was became a fascinating debate about Kaczuk's value to, as his brother gets named a captain in Ottawa. The value of Matthew and the organization, I think became debated, but ultimately, it's. I can see why some people would think that I think that package for Eichel, if it is going to be interesting in terms of what that contract negotiation will be for the Flames and Matthew coming up, what that qualifying offer is and what comes up there. I think that's going to be that will be a tense negotiation, and I think everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. But because we know the Kaczuk family and we know how they negotiate. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. That's just they negotiate and it's tough. They're not going to take the air quote I'm using there for those that are listening, hometown discount. But I also think the Flames saw the value in Matthew Kaczuk, and really, if you're the Sabres, of course you're going to ask about Matthew Kaczuk. Why would you not ask about Matthew Kaczuk? You would not be doing your due diligence if not. But ultimately, just I guess in terms of all of it is to say, I don't think Calgary was truly in this, and I don't think ultimately that Brad Treliving I think that Brad Treliving got some unfair criticism this week for not making the deal. I just think that was such an overreaction. Ultimately, I think Eichel was going to Vegas. I think that this was kind of felt like this was the plan all along, and everybody else was kind of along for the ride.
I'm going to intentionally poke the bear, even though Devin's not here. Devin, if you're listening, Treliving, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
You were talking about how close only counts in hand grades and horseshoes. It also counts when you're the GM of the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, and again, that's just the speculation that's out there. You know, I mean, it's good on Brad to come across as an aggressive general manager and one that's always willing to make a deal. And I think he'd be more under fire if he was just never in the discussion, and people are like, well, what is he doing? Then again, he might pull off a deal, and then people are like, not enough in return, just losing their minds. So
Yeah.
you're kind of damned either way.
I guess from the Vegas part of this, though, I mean, once Eichel gets off of LTIR, and I do agree with Dan. When Dan was on, we did the special, and Dan said it's actually going to be Mark Stone is going to be the Kucherov of this, not Jack Eichel, and I do agree with him on that. But what they are going to have to do to finagle to get him into that lineup is going to be very fascinating to me.
I mean, they have to make the playoffs first for him to be the Kucherov of this deal.
True, and I got to tell you, even with Eichel, I'm not sold on the Golden Knights.
Well,
I'm not buying
they're
it.
not going to have Eichel for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah,
depending on how the rehab goes and everything. So and you've got Calgary and Edmonton playing really well right now, separating themselves out a bit. You've got Anaheim playing really well, and you've got the Canucks sort of underperforming. And if the Canucks can get going, like it's going to be, and Vegas can't tread water enough to stay at least within striking distance. And I don't think, like, you look at, they don't have Pacioretty. He's not going to be back for a while. Mark Stone's a massive question mark if he even comes back. Eichel's not going to be back for 3 to 4 months. They're even out without William Karlsson. And I don't know exactly when he's going to be back, but it might be soon. But still, like, you look at that and you wonder, are they going to be good enough to tread water until their stars are back?
Ultimately, I'm thinking McCrimmon is looking more towards the future and next season as opposed to this season. Like, if they make the playoffs, great, he's happy. But if they don't, I don't think it's like the roof is on fire sort of situation in Vegas. It's more just they wanted to make this deal happen. They did what they needed to do to make this deal happen. And whatever they have to do to make Eichel active later this season, ultimately, I just don't think they're focusing on this season as an organization.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think that this is a team that wants to win. I think this is a team. They fired Gerard Gallant, who took them to the Stanley Cup final to bring in Pete DeBoer. They want to win. They want to get a cup as quickly as possible in Vegas. I don't know if I necessarily agree that this year is a write-off. I think that they have some expectations.
I think this is a move that kind of aims at both timelines there. I mean, it's a gamble for this season whether this move will pay off, but to Chris's point, to still have Eichel in the fold for beyond this season, it's kind of both.
Injury.
Yeah, and then I mean, Vegas is able to pull off these deals because they amass so many draft picks and prospect capital, so to speak, when the team was starting up. And there's been much made about, I think, all of their first round picks from their first draft now being gone. And, other teams are not in a position to make those kinds of deals.
And the way I look at it is, if they make the playoffs this year, then they're all in. Like, they're going to be able to dress one hell of a lineup, but they have to make it there. And I think they know it's a risk. I think that's why they top 10 protected that first round pick. If they knew they could get this team fully healthy and dressed, and you look at that top 6 where you've got the misfit line, and then you've got Eichel centering Stone and Pacioretty, like that's a really, really tough top 6 to play against, no matter who you are. And then you've got Pietrangelo and you've got Shea Theodore. They didn't have to give up Shea Theodore. That was a big name that everyone thought that Buffalo would be after to make this work. I think if they make it in, then the expectations are there. You win it. But I think there is the fallback is next year. Riley Smith comes off the books next year. Maybe they want to keep him, but they can also move some players around to help keep that. It's just I think they've got options to not only if they make the playoffs this year to go deep, but they can set themselves up to be a team that could be a dominant force next season and beyond.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is all you need to do in the NHL in a lot of ways is just get in. If you can get into the playoffs, you have a chance. We've seen wild card teams win the cup. We've seen wild card teams get to the final. So if you're Vegas, all you need to do is get in and you have a chance. So and that's it's very interesting to see what happens, and I'm very intrigued what they do at the trade deadline. I think that they become the most intriguing team because you will have to figure out what you're doing with everybody at that particular point, and then you may have to make some moves, and they'll be fascinated.
Yeah. I mean, it's not impossible that they'd be sellers at the deadline, but at this stage, that would be a big surprise to me if they're not buying at the deadline.
Fair enough. Maybe I wasn't as eloquent as I was hoping to be when I first brought that up, but ultimately kind of building off of the points that Sean was making, like, I don't think this season is the end all be all for Vegas.
No, I got what you were getting at there, Kev.
Mm-hmm.
There, Chris. I think it is you. I think you nailed it. I think you got a 2-3 year window here where they can build off of this. They've got Marchessault signed for another 3 years. Chandler Stevenson signed at a steal of a deal at 2.75 for 2 years after this year. After this year, they've got a lot of RFAs that they're going to need re-signing. Brett Howden, Nick Waugh, or Keegan Colasar. Those are good depth players that they have. And then they're going to want a little bit more money. McNabb needs a new deal next year. Nick Hague needs a new deal, and he's an RFA.
That's another guy that was expected to go to Buffalo as well.
And so I think they've got some flexibility to maybe rebuild that blue line a bit. I still think that blue line's a little thin. Yeah, they've got Pietrangelo, Martinez, and Theodore, but I think they need a White Cloud to come back. They need Nick Hague to continue to play well. But I think they just, I think if they don't make it this year, it's not like this trade that they just made is a bust.
No. I mean
You've got like Eichel signed for another 4 years after this, but they are very, very top heavy at that point. Because Pietrangelo makes 8.8, Mark Stone makes 9.5, Jack Eichel makes 10. They're going to have to find a way to continue to grab some younger players that can play good minutes for them in their bottom six and their bottom pair, or even just call it the bottom five forwards.
Yeah. The other, I guess it will also be interesting to see, I don't know then, if Eichel comes back this year, maybe they keep him out and say, let's wait until September. Like we have time.
All comes down to how his recovery happens. If he comes back and he feels strong and ready, you bring him back. You see what you can do.
Yeah.
Because
the only thing I was just going to say though on that is he's not going to be at top. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not going to be good, but he may not be at top Eichel when he gets back right away. That's
no. Well, who would be though, right?
Yeah,
especially with this kind of a layoff. But they didn't make this deal, with anything other than the expectation that at some point prior to the playoffs, he'll be in there helping them get there and then making a difference once they're there.
Yeah.
I think we saw how rusty Petey has been to start this season, and that's a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was out with that wrist injury, and he hasn't played. He didn't play since February. Let alone Jack Eichel. He's going to be out for around a year, if not it's going to be around a year, a full calendar year since he's played a game when he comes back.
Yeah.
I imagine that Eichel is going to have a very similar comeback to like what Petey just went through. Unless Vegas goes on a deep run this playoffs, I'm not sure if I really see Eichel being a factor this season.
Well, he'll be a good
top line.
Yeah, he won't be at the top at his top level.
Yeah.
And to bring this back to the Flames, this is why I was always saying that it just didn't make sense. I wasn't sure how much salary that and cap the Vegas needed to shed because they were already in LTIR. Flames aren't in LTIR right now, and they needed to shed enough cap that because that was the whole massive twist that I think a lot of people didn't quite understand was Jack Eichel was not on long-term injury, and he was still counting against Buffalo's cap because they needed that cap to be above the cap floor, significantly above the cap floor, so they can make moves. They went out and traded for Johnny Boychuk's contract so that they could do that. They're enough above the cap that they can sell off more at the deadline if need be. And I think that comes to another conversation about the implementation of LTIR in terms of the cap. But when it comes to the Flames, they would have had to give up. That's part of why I think that any package coming from the Flames is going to be so convoluted, complicated, and big because they needed to move cap out. Even with this the $7 million that is Kaczuk's cap, is that they still needed to add another $2.5 million, if not more, if I remember correctly, to make it work before they could even just put Jack Eichel on long-term injury and then take that cap off.
You would have, as Dan said, I think you would have gutted your team far too much because you would have had to have given up. The Flames are not in prospect heaven. There's 3 that they have, 3 or 4 that are it's Zeri, Pelche, Coronado, who is a few years away, and Dustin Wolf. And giving any of those up, that's depleting your farm base. Giving up a Kaczuk and giving up what you would have had to have given up, what do you depleted your team? And, I think the other part of my frustration from the Flames fans' perspective and the Eichel situation, what bothered me was this whole argument around it's Jack Eichel, you give him basically what you want. That has never happened in the history of trades. You even look at the Wayne Gretzky trade, they didn't give up their best player. You didn't give up whatever you wanted. I mean, they gave up a lot of money, but they didn't give up.
Pocklington wanted money.
Yeah, exactly. But still, you're not giving I don't think you just go as Dan said, pay the nice man in Buffalo whatever they want. I think you had to really think about what you're giving up for a guy. Yes, I'm not disputing he's a number 1 center. That is not at dispute, but we're already having a discussion of when he's going to play again. So that's, and if you're Jack Eichel, are you wanting to come back in a situation where he could be back and this team is so barren that he's with, it's almost like he's in Buffalo all over again.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It made no sense to me. I understand why they were checking in and had significant interest. If they could find a way to broker the deal through a third team to be able to do something, it made sense. But to just do a straight up trade with Buffalo, the amount of cap and players they would have had to move out just to bring him in just didn't make sense. and you would have they're playing really well right now, and you would have gutted your team.
Yeah.
And as much fun as it would have been to have the Battle of Alberta be McDavid versus Eichel, I don't think it made sense. And in terms of building a roster, building a locker room, and a cohesive team and group that you're going to try and win with, you need to find a way to to say no to these when stuff like this happens. Yeah, for a franchise center as Jack Eichel was, whether he continues to be after this surgery, it remains to be seen. But they don't come up very often. You have to take a look at it.
Sure.
That being said, going into the trade rumors, there were so many times where people are like, they were either speculating or there was rumors that teams would call with very, very specific needs and for a trade to happen, and Buffalo would like shut them right down, and then people would still be going, "Oh, Colorado's in on this." Like, no. Like, everyone's checking into seeing if they can acquire him for however it works for their team. But as soon as those go away, you can't really say. And yeah, I think it's that Brad Treliving did everything he could to knock on Kevin Adams' door and give him a call every 2 hours to try and make this deal happen, but it just wasn't to be. And
Yeah.
This is my best analogy. It's like you're pursuing your someone that you're significantly interested in. You buy the proper chocolates, you spend all the money on the roses, you go to a nice dinner, but ultimately the interest is in the other person. This was what Buffalo was at. They were completely focused. I think that they really wanted Peyton Krebs. I think that was the prospect that they wanted. I think that was kind of their eye, and nothing else was going to deter them.
I think they after all the talks, yes, they realized that Vegas was the team that was going to be able to give them what they were looking for without any extra complications.
Yeah,
because I think you look at Connor Zary or Peltier or Coronado or Dustin Wolf. Maybe not Dustin Wolf, because I don't think we're there to be where the valuation of goaltenders is where it should be. But if you look at those three players, I think they're very comparable to Peyton Krebs. And it just was the complications that would have had to come with the Flames deal. I don't think Buffalo wanted.
To throw out another analogy, basically, like, because Sean alluded to, like, Colorado coming in with interest and not necessarily being serious about it, I would almost say, like, Colorado is like, let's say this was a Kijiji, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace ad. Colorado came in, saw the $250 price tag. They're like, "You going to take $100 for that?" No? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I don't think there was any other team that could have done that trade because and without a team brokering it and creating complications and then prolonging the negotiations. Because I think what was the talk that Eichel finally got one of the doctors that's on like the approved list of second and third opinion doctors that the NHL and NHLPA have agreed upon to say, yes, he needs the disc replacement surgery. And once he got that, he's like, if you don't trade me, I'm filing a grievance and this is going to court.
Yeah. Yeah. The also the timing of this in terms of like, I think Eichel was like, I've had enough to get this done. Yeah. Cause this has been going on for too long.
The longer it went, the more leverage Eichel kind of had.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. As Devin said here, though, sometimes the best moves are the wins that aren't made. I do appreciate Tree having a set standard that he feels is fair and won't push past that for a trade.
Yeah. You don't want to feel like you're making a trade because there's some kind of external pressures on you to do it, right? He's been holding firm to get the deal that he wants to get. And then he might be under fire for seemingly being not a very active general manager. But I mean, we've seen in times past where sometimes the most active managers are the ones that just keep making their team worse and worse. And then they're out of a job a few weeks later. I mean, like, let's go back to Pete Chiarelli when he was the GM of the Oilers. I mean, leading up to his dismissal, I mean, he was by far the most active general manager, and then he got fired. So, yeah, definitely, have to agree with Devin here, as much as it pains me. No, I'm just kidding. So definitely a calm approach from the general manager, and sometimes, holding firm is a better approach than wheeling and dealing, thinking you're going to just randomly hit on something.
And
go ahead, Devin, or Sean. Sorry.
And the fact that, like, how angry it sounds like the Calgary management was, and it probably still is, about Kaczuk, that tweet coming out from Kevin Weeks with Kaczuk specifically on that named.
Yeah, they don't want any friction or any reason for Chucky to feel unhappy there.
He's in a contract year. If he can take the $9 million qualifying offer and go and walk straight to UFA next offseason, if he really wants to. And if that's the case, then they like, that was part of the conversation. It's like they had to take a look at, like, what's this team going to look like next season? Yeah, you're having a great start, but what's this team looking like next season? Yeah, because you've got Gaudreau who needs a new deal. You've got Kaczuk who needs a new deal. You've got Mangiapane who needs a new deal. You've got Oliver Shillington who's come out of nowhere to actually be an NHL defenseman, needs a new contract. Like, what are you paying him? What are you paying Mangiapane? Because they've ground Mangiapane down a few times. If I'm him and his agent, I'm saying, look, we're going to do this to you now. This time, we're going to make sure that Andrew Mangiapane, as a 25-year-old currently, will be 26 when he signs his when the new deal kicks in. He's gonna want term. He's gonna want money. Like, that. You look at, Gaudreau and Kaczuk are gonna be tough negotiations, but with the way Mangiapane's playing,
that's going to be the toughest one, I would argue, even tougher than Kaczuk, because you can find 9. Like, I do agree with Dan. You can get Gudbranson off the books. You can get another player off the books. You can find a couple extra million for Kaczuk. Mangiapane and even Oliver Shillington. And I was thinking about this. I don't know. We were talking about Shillington. I don't know it. I think it's fair to ask what his comparable is, but I don't think he's going to be. Those two are going to be very interesting contrasts for the Flames to negotiate.
If Shillington keeps up this play, he's a top 4 defenseman, and he's going to want to be paid that way. He is going to be 25 when next season starts. He's going to have one season of leverage, one good season under his belt. So he's not necessarily going to have the leverage to get something long term, or if it is long term, it's going to be below market value for a top 4 defenseman. But it's still going to be a little more. It's going to be more expensive than they were initially expecting.
Yeah. I think I'm guessing that's a $2 million. I think it's in the 2s there. I could see that. Mangiapane, I don't know. That's going to be fascinating. I mean, it's not going to be super high, but that's not going to be an easy contract.
If he puts up, we're talking about a guy who has gone off to an absolute fire start. He scored at a 20-goal pace for 2 seasons in a row. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets something. You know who's the comparable for Andrew Mangiapane is? It's Connor Garland.
Yeah, that's a little bit. I have to think about that a little bit more. I feel like Garland's a little ahead of Mangiapane, to be honest with you. But I could see where you're coming from.
Well, both of them weren't like bona fide play. Like you look at Connor Garland, I think he's very similar in terms of his career trajectory. He's got one 20 like actual 20 goal season under his belt. And that was a couple seasons ago. He scored 12 and 49 and then 13 and 47 in these other ones. And then he signed that deal's almost looking like a steal now. But I think you'll look at what Mangiapane could use as a comparable. I think Connor Garland is a very good one for his camp to look at. And what Connor Garland got 5 years at 4.95.
That wouldn't be a terrible deal for the Flames either. So
no, but it's still a significant upgrade from his 2.55.
Yeah,
and especially in an off season where you're going to have to give, you have to find new deals for Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Kaczuk in the new world where that is what they're getting at. Gaudreau is 6.75. He's probably getting at least a mil or two more, and Kaczuk's not taking anything less than his 9 mil, his 9 mil qualifying offer, and they're right up against the cap. I don't think it's a bad deal. I just think it's going to be a very, as you said, Kev, it's going to be a very tough negotiation.
Yeah. And so go ahead. Whoever was going to, I heard someone wanted to chime. Anyway, yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting there for sure. And then, you got Zadorov, who's UFA next year. I think there's a legitimate question if Valimaki's back next year at 1.5. That's an interesting question because I do think it's one or the other. I think it's either Shillington or Valimaki, and I don't think you can have both. But so it will be interesting. But that's way down in the future.
Yeah. If you had to decide at this moment right now, probably Shillington has the inside track on Valimaki.
I think you could have both because if you get rid of Zadorov, you could have Hanifin, Shillington, Valimaki on the left side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like 1.55 if Valimaki's your third pair defenseman is horrible for a third pair defenseman.
I guess it depends on what you get for Shillington. What
Shillington gets, yeah. But it's just it's gonna be interesting because I look at that and I think there's gonna be moves. Like, are you gonna keep a Tyler Pitlick at 1.75? I don't think he's going to take anything less than that, and especially when he's been on a very good effective line with Backlund and Coleman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're right up against the cap and basically everyone, you've got 3-4 very key players are going to get, and at least 2 of them are going to get very significant raises, if not 3.
Yeah.
Something's going to have to happen. But again, that is far along. They are playing really well right now, way ahead of expectations. I think I don't think anyone had them coming out like being right there. Even the most diehard Flames fans had very, very, very high skepticism with Daryl Sutter coming in.
And anytime you got a lengthy Eastern road trip and you sweep it, that's a huge, huge bonus for your movement up the standings there. So good start for the Flames, and we'll see if they can keep it going.
Yeah. I guess a couple of other quick things, but maybe before we dig into the Oilers here a little bit. Now that Eichel's gone, who's the next name?
Oh, I think it all comes down to how much Arizona's willing to move players. Can San Jose keep up?
Boy, I'd love to see someone get Clayton Keller out of there, Arizona.
And wasn't there a rumor that Hurdle was apparently a potential moving block out of San Jose?
San Jose is just interesting because you look at, they had that whole Evander Kane issue, but he's not coming back. Like it doesn't. I don't think it matters what happens from there. If I'm Doug Wilson, I don't entertain the idea of bringing him back, and you buy him out as soon as you can. He was a lock. He was one of the reasons that the Hurdle's name was out there was because everything that went on, he didn't want back into a locker room with Evander Kane.
Yeah.
So, but he's also on a contract year. So that's always you always look at who's available as a UFA for a potential rental at the deadline. He's 27. He's 27, turning 28, like within 5 days here. I look at same thing with Philly. I think Philly is a team to watch as well. If they continue to be in the running, then that's good for them. But if they fall out, Claude Giroux.
Hey, I brought him up. I did bring him up.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think who else.
I think the fire sale
Brian...
will be in Chicago. Is going to be in Chicago.
I wanted to bring that up too, Kevin, and of course, I think we're going to get into that here in a second. But
let's transition into that.
Yeah, so I mean, Jeremy Colleton, the head coach, fired here. I mean, I guess not really a big surprise with Chicago off to such a terrible start. Never mind all the off-ice issues that they've been dealing with. But now you have to wonder, what big names might be changing places from the Blackhawks there. I think. Maybe not everybody's on the table, but most of them.
Okay, let me ask, because I asked last week. What about Jonathan Toews?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know where he's at because Toews and Kane both have no movement clauses on. Like they have to basically say where they want to go, and Chicago has to make it happen if they're going to trade him.
My gut feeling is that Toews will retire a Blackhawk, but Kane will be a hired gun to free up cap space.
If they want to, and if they're willing to retain on Kane, they could get an absolute ransom for him. But the other thing is, you also look at Kubalik, Strome, are both RFAs at the end of this year. They could be on the move. But other than that, like, is there any, like, they're not moving Kirby Dach. They're not moving Alex DeBrincat. DeBrincat was the only one who actually showed any sort of like remorse. Like you're keeping him. He's someone you definitely have to keep going forward.
You have to. Yeah.
They've already signed Seth Jones to an absolute ridiculous deal. Like,
do you realize Columbus could get a lottery pick out of that Seth Jones deal?
So it sounds like the Ottawa and San Jose and and Colorado and all that, because Ottawa gave Colorado a lottery pick out of it, out of what the Duchesne deal, and then
San Jose gave Ottawa a lottery pick
out of the Carlson deal.
Yeah.
So I look at Chicago. There's probably some. I don't know if Kane's this year, or he's more of an off-season trade. But if Chicago's willing to retain, then
how much would they have to retain to make that work? You think?
Like, he's $10.5 million cap hit.
So you think like what, $3 million?
3, 4, yeah,
maybe 5.
Maybe you have to go 50, the full 50% for this year and next to make it for the rest of this season and next season, which isn't actually horrible if you're getting the right return.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Tays, my thought process is I don't think he would want to come. I think maybe there's one place he would consider coming in Canada, but I think he would want to stay in America if he moves. But I do probably see him retiring as a Blackhawk and kind of just ride it out. I just think in terms of bringing a guy like him in at this particular point, that is, it's a fascinating PR question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. The other team to watch, I think, is Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We don't know, like that Metro is, it's way too early. Like Carolina's done well, Rangers are looking good, Washington's looking good. Everyone else is like Pittsburgh's in last in that division, but they're only 3 points like, is it 3? Yeah, 3 points out. Like it's not like they're out of it.
Yeah, and they still haven't
so
had
early, right? It's so early.
So
like really, there's the only two, like there's only like Montreal, Ottawa, Arizona, and Chicago who are really out of it. Maybe even Seattle.
Yeah.
So when I look at Pittsburgh, God, where are they on this? They're there. I'm pulling up Cap Friendly, and I'm just like, where is it?
While you're doing that, I just want to quickly take a half step back for a second. The Canadian team that you were alluding to, Kev, are you talking about Winnipeg just because he is a Winnipegger?
No, I was actually thinking the Oilers.
Oh, okay.
Because of Duncan Keith.
Fair.
Well, maybe.
No, I'd see him only going back to Manitoba if he's going to play somewhere in Canada myself, but we'll see.
But with Pittsburgh, they've got.
But if you're Chipman,
no, that's the one thing. It's like you're not touching. Chipman's not touching that. He's made a very vocal and public, like decree that he wants to help change things. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that's come out of this is everything with that was like what was going on in that locker room and who was the leader of that locker room? It was Jonathan Toews. Do you really want that? No.
Well, I mean, whatever Jets fans think now, I mean, if you put Jonathan Toews in front of them and say, hey, he can be on your team, I would suspect a few people would have a different opinion with that.
Yeah, but ultimately, if it's coming down to Chipman's dollar that's paying his salary, I feel like Chipman's going to pull that veto card.
I guess I'm the cynical one here to think that he give this a couple of years and bringing him in. I don't know if they're going to hold the attitude that they have today, but that's just me.
A couple of years. How many years does Toews have left?
He's got one more year after this year on his contract, right?
And how old is he?
30s.
30s. He's mid-30s.
Yeah. But yeah, back to Pittsburgh. It all comes down to Chris Letang needs a new contract after this year. Evgeny Malkin needs a new contract after this year. Like if Brian Burke and Ron Hextall want to completely hit the reset button in Pittsburgh and start trying to build the next wave here, that's a good start. You're gonna get you'll get a decent amount of draft capital and prospects capital for one, if not both of those players.
Yeah.
Let's just jump. Let's finish off with the McDavid, and then because we have time to talk about the Leafs. They're playing the Calgary later this week, so we can touch on them a little bit later on in the week. But I think the internet broke when Connor McDavid scored the goal that Edmonton Oilers fans were celebrating. I mean, it was an exciting goal. A lot of people really happy about it, except Daryl Sutter, who said it was a one-on-one play, not 1-on-4. 3 players were standing all over the place there. I wonder if we look, I don't know how to word this. I think it's a great goal. but I think I feel like there was a little bit of overreaction on this. I'll let you guys talk this.
Well, that's the world we live in now. Everybody, is prone to recency bias and kind of quickly forgets the past. So yeah, obviously there's that wow factor and a bit of overreacting to it. I mean, anytime somebody goes 1-on-4 through the team and scores, it's going to get a lot of attention. But where do you put that goal in the context of all NHL scoring? I mean, people say, is that the greatest goal he's ever scored? Perhaps. But then again, for me, how do you define greatest? Greatest in terms of the circumstances and how meaningful the goal was, or is that just on pure ability? I mean, on pure ability, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that, for McDavid is probably one of the best he's ever scored, if not the best, and one of the best we've seen in the NHL in a very long time. But as far as greatest goals, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other ones that I would put ahead of that one. And we had this discussion amongst ourselves here a few days ago. I mean, just think of a couple of Mario Lemieux's goals that appear on the TSN top 10 lists all the time. I mean, those are playoff goals, big goals. We need to see McDavid do something like that in the postseason before we put that near the top of the list of greatest goals we've ever seen in the National Hockey League, I think.
As good as that goal was, I still like that his goal versus the Leafs where he absolutely undressed Morgan Riley.
Yeah.
1-on-1. Better. I just think it's more spectacular.
Probably more difficult to pull off, if you can believe that.
But the one thing is with what both those the goal against the Leafs and that goal a couple days ago show off is his 1 to 2 step acceleration is just there's no one can touch him. No one can touch him in terms of getting to full speed in like 1 to 2 to 3 steps. Like you watch that. Go and watch that goal and go and watch where the one versus the Leafs. Because it's literally he's going slow, he sees an opportunity, and he's gone. That's what makes him so special.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with
speed, yeah.
I was talking with our friend Graham Moseman about this, and he's like, he's the best player of all time. I'm like, well, that's such a loaded. But what I will say is I'm willing to say that he's the best skater that's ever played the game. His ability to play at speed and make that speed a weapon. The only player who comes close to it that I've watched personally is Pavel Bure.
I was going to say the exact same name. Outside of Bure, I'm not sure if there's anyone else who comes close to that explosive speed.
Speed and the hands to keep up with.
Yeah, the hands with it. Yeah.
Bobby Orr.
Like I said, I've watched personally.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Bobby. I've seen the highlights of Bobby Orr, and everyone knows who watches this and knows how highly I have Bobby Orr in there. But in terms of like just pure speed and everything, he is the best. And that's just the. If Bobby Orr had access to today's training and medicine and everything, I think we could have that conversation. I think I think he's probably better when you take into all that account, because let's remember, if Bobby was playing in the 70s where you showed up to camp after smoking darts for the whole summer, got into shape, and then you were good. You have to show up.
There was no off-season conditioning program. You showed up to the training camp to get in shape.
It's a completely different animal. It's a completely different era. Like, and you look at how the players skate now, in terms of, you could probably compare them to the way Bobby Orr skated. You're probably looking at third, fourth liners who are probably skating as just as good a level as Bobby Orr did. Mm-hmm. Now, comparable to where Bobby Orr and McDavid are compared to their peers, that's a completely different one. But in terms of who I've watched, it's McDavid and Bure that have no one's come close to their ability to be absolutely game breaking with their speed and the fact that their hands can keep up with them.
Yeah. Or was a glider, or just skated so smoothly. He didn't need that second step. often. Like if you like I'm saying this polite, like I'm not trying this as an insult. He didn't need that explosive because he just glided so well.
The game's just was so much different back then,
And it was
too.
so different, and the ice was different too. The quality of the ice now and compared to then, and also the rink size, because you had smaller rinks back then. You had the Boston Garden was small. He didn't play in the Coliseum.
I'll go so far as to say the skates in particular too. I mean,
the skates too, yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you, the pair of skates I'm using now compared to the previous set, it's amazing even how different that is over say a 7-year period.
Let's just generalize it as equipment in general.
Well, it's like Sean said, everything about the game, right? Equipment, the way it's played, the training, all of it put together.
Nice quality,
training, the medical. Like we was it 2 years ago? We got sort of an inside look at what McDavid went through to try and recover from his knee injury.
Mm-hmm.
That was a knee injury that basically ruined Bobby Orr's career, right? But in terms of like just getting back to it, it's the 2-3 step, the 2 to 3 step acceleration that Connor McDavid has that sets him apart from everyone else.
Yeah, they were trying. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Like I said, he is the best skater that's ever played this game. I don't think he's the best. I think. Well, we all know that Ovechkin is, in terms of this era, is the best goal scorer. Whether I really hope he can at least get close to Gretzky's record, just so we can have that conversation.
Speaking of which, he tied Brett Hull earlier today.
Yeah, he did. And then I would say Crosby's the thinking man. The thinking is the smart, is the analytics, the analytical thinking player. He's the one who can.
Crosby too, as far as elevating the game of who he's playing with, probably the most.
He makes everyone that he plays with significantly better, and his ability to play not only with the skill and speed, but to grind it out in the cycle is, I don't think people give him enough credit for that. I think that's what makes him one of the reasons why he's right in that discussion, or high up in terms of best players ever.
I think with both Crosby and Ovechkin too, I think the way that they've adapted their game over time that's not been appreciated. Like you look at how Ovechkin used to score goals, because he has one that his goal against Columbus a few years ago was one that we were talking about that was a goal for the ages. But you looked at how he used to just barrel towards the net. Now it's not the same anymore. He adapted his game. So did Crosby. I don't think people appreciate both of them enough for how they've adapted their game to. And this is, I'm sorry. This is why I'm still not buying the Oilers quite yet. I'm not saying I'm buying the Flames, by the way, but I still see the Oilers in that old. I think that I think that willingness to win 6-4, while wonderful and entertaining, I don't know if it gets you out of the first round of the playoffs. That's still the question. When I watch the Oilers, that's still the question that I have in my mind. As impressive as everything is, that defense and that goaltending just doesn't feel to me like it's going to hold up.
And to get back to the core of the original question, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Tyler's point of it's the context of which these goals are scored that ultimately is kind of how you have to grade it. The goal he scored earlier this week, I would say it's impressive as hell. It's definitely going to be on the highlight reels for the season for sure. Whether it lives up as an all-time great, I'm not so sure. It's impressive, but yeah, I just don't see it as an all-time great highlight reel goal.
It's gonna unless something else happens, it's gonna win goal of the year this year. Kaczuk's goal was fantastic through the legs, very skilled, but the wow factor that McDavid had in terms of being able to go in, recognize that the Rangers were flat-footed, and just attack right through them, and have the poise to know exactly what to like, and at that time to do that. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to beat that for goal of the year.
Just very quickly, just to touch on Kevin's point about whether we're sold on the Oilers or not, I would say as far as making the playoffs and being in one of those top 3 Pacific Division spots, I am sold on the Oilers. I think the Hyman acquisition has been huge. However, if they suffer a couple of injuries to key players, we'll see whether the depth is there. That's always the question with every team, is whether the depth is there. But really for the Oilers, and it's the same for the Maple Leafs, they're not going to be judged on the regular season anymore. It's entirely about the playoffs, and we'll see with the Oilers whether they, the core guys there can push it to the next level here. But as far as how they look right now, I mean, they're 9-1. And it hasn't been all easy teams along the way either. And on defense, I mean, Evan Bouchard is, a key piece there that's been really pulling his weight. You could say maybe even pulling more than his own weight. And if he can keep it going the way he's started off the year here, I think they're in good shape.
And just to build off of that, one of the things, and they have the Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid have the ability to do this. They're smart enough players, they're skilled enough players to be able to adapt to what style is needed to win a game. That's what's going to elevate them to the next level. For me, if Connor McDavid is going to be in that conversation, he needs to make sure that he can adapt and become like I said, like a Crosby, where he can operate and be very impressive and operate at high speeds and high skills, but you still have to find a way to grind it out.
Yep.
And be just a rock on the puck and not be able to be knocked off of it and cycle it through.
Almost bring that sedinery to the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to be tough, rough and tough to do that. All you have to do is just he's got the leg strength to do that. Like there's a reason he's that fucking fast, that fucking quick acceleration. He's got leg strength. He's got that lower body. If he can start feeling better with that and start being able to grind it out, and then because if he's got that acceleration, he can do that out of the corner too.
Yeah, I'm not saying McDavid's not great. It's just there's that next level where the championship level, what it takes to win a championship, and an Art Ross are two different things. And I think every great player has had to learn that. Even Gretzky really had to learn that too. Mm-hmm. Mario did, Ovechkin did, Crosby did, and if McDavid does, then I think the Oilers will be there. But that's going to be the question.
And then the always brought up Yzerman, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't start winning Detroit until, multiple things, but one of the big things was Yzerman became wasn't just about the points.
Yeah. There is a question here. Maybe we'll get your quick thoughts here before we go. Adam Fox is the next. Is he better than Quinn Hughes? I would say at this point, yes.
Fox is better defensively than Quinn Hughes at this point. I think offensively, Quinn Hughes is. Is there anyone who can put up points better than Quinn Hughes right now off the blue line when he's on? They got Hedman, you've got Makar, you've got Fox is right up there, but it's a really short list that you're going to put up against Quinn Hughes' offensive ability and ability to drive play. It's his defensive ability that's what we need as Canucks fans to see an improvement of. And I think we've seen it a little bit this year. And if he can take that next step defensively, then man, it's going to be tough when you've got Makar, you've got Fox, and you've got Hughes, and don't forget about Heiskanen. And honestly, if it's a player who doesn't get nearly enough praise because he's playing on such a absolute shit team is Rasmus Dahlin. Like he just gets buried in Buffalo, unfortunately. If he was on a team that was half decent or was battling for the playoffs, I think you'd see a little more praise coming his way. But and they're all what, 23 and under?
Yeah,
22 and under. Like it's just
the defense is exciting for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's leave it there for now. We've got some recaps this week because the Flames have 3 games: San Jose, Montreal, and Toronto this week. So we'll be recapping those games. But we'll be back also on Monday for more.
Remember, the word of the week is boo, as in
Woo!
what Calgary Flames are still doing to Adam Fox as we speak.
Yeah.
As again, that's if you're in Calgary, go visit the Pig and Duke. 12th and 12th and 4th and 4th are the 2 locations that they have. It's the Pig and Puck Club. Sign up. You can get game day specials for, I think it's just all, if there's a Canadian team playing, I believe. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, go visit the Pig and Duke. It's 12th Ave and 12th Street Southwest, and then 4th Ave and 4th Street Southwest. And you can enter to join the Pig and Puck Club, enter to win tickets to the Calgary Flames versus Vancouver Canucks game on April 23rd, and retweet any of our episodes or clips, or DM us the word of the week, which is boo,
Boo.
at podcast_hockey, and we will give you 3 extra entries to that. So hopefully we'll see you. You'll join, and just to add on to that, you'll be able to join myself, Chris, and Devin going to that game. So make sure you get all that done.
Welcome to the shit show.
Maybe Tyler and I will come out. Who knows? Depends on things.
Yes.
But how do we follow everyone?
I am BeardyConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
Devin is GordHowe09. Hopefully he'll be joining me late tomorrow when San Jose is in town. I am KEVOLE. Podcast_hockey. By the way, we will be probably getting a little bit more from the Fireside Chat joining us for some game recaps for the Flames this year as well. So that'll be fun. You follow them, Fireside Chat. And of course, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, the Hockey Podcast. Give us a like, subscribe, share our stuff. Not only can you win, it just tells us that you love us. And that means a lot too. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Keep an eye out for some clips. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye for now.